For nearly 19 seasons, viewers crowned Janelle Brown as the sensible one, the logical thinker, the money-minded wife who supposedly kept the Brown family afloat, while chaos swirled around everyone else. She was framed as different from the other wives, the one who could see through Cody's manipulation, the independent woman who didn't need a man to validate her value. Fans rallied behind her in comment sections, shut down critics, and held her up as evidence that at least one person in this family actually had common sense. Then season 20's Tell all aired, and everything shifted. The woman millions had defended began revealing things about herself that no one saw coming. One Reddit user summed up the collective shock perfectly, writing, "I feel bamboozled. I've watched this family since day one. I thought I knew the main characters of the wives, but Janelle has me puzzled." That single post ignited more than 400 comments from viewers grappling with the same uncomfortable realization. The financial expert image, the independent woman storyline, the belief that Janelle was simply the rational one trapped in an irrational family. All of it started collapsing under the weight of her own words. A few fans insisted they'd seen it all along, claiming Janelle was always sneaky and shady, but most people spent years rooting for her, celebrating every moment she pushed back against Cody, every time she prioritized her kids over his ego. The shock wasn't just about new information coming to light. It was about realizing how thoroughly viewers had been misled by a carefully constructed persona. What made the revelation so unsettling was the gap between who Janelle claimed to be and what the evidence now suggests. She portrayed herself as the working wife, the one who understood finances, the practical thinker surrounded by emotional turmoil. But once you start tugging at that story, the entire Janelle Brown, responsible adult narrative begins unraveling in some very uncomfortable ways. After the tell, all the question lingering for viewers wasn't whether Janelle had made mistakes. Everyone does. It was whether her entire identity had been manufactured from the very beginning. And if that was true, what else about this family's story had audiences completely misunderstood? To answer that, you have to rewind to the start, back to how Janelle entered the family, and what that moment reveals about how she operates. Janelle once coined a phrase aimed at Robin, accusing the fourth wife of knowing how to give power to gain power. Fans seized on that line as proof that Janelle could recognize manipulation when she saw it, that she understood the game Robin was playing with Cody. What viewers failed to notice, and what now feels painfully obvious, is that Janelle didn't learn that tactic by observing someone else. She wrote the rulebook herself. Before becoming Cody's second wife, Janelle already had ties to the family through Mary. She was Mary's sister, in-law, married to Mary's brother. These women weren't strangers, they were family. And according to Janelle's own tell, all admission, during that time she realized she might have feelings for Cody, her sister, in-law's husband. Let that fully sink in. Janelle sat across from a family member, observed her marriage, developed an attraction to her husband, and then acted on it. When this was brought up during the tell, Janelle brushed it off with a casual, "Yeah, no big deal," reaction that left viewers stunned by her lack of awareness about how deeply harmful that must have been for Mary. Mary herself spoke openly about what it felt like, watching your sister-in-law sense a thing for your husband, only to later become your sister wife. Polygamy may claim to prepare women for sharing a husband, but nothing prepares you for realizing someone you trusted was harboring feelings for your spouse while sitting at your dinner table, and the timeline only makes it worse. Janelle married Cody the day after Mary's birthday, then told Cody that Mary shouldn't have feelings about it. That level of audacity exposes something critical about how Janelle operated from the very beginning. Janelle cast herself as the level-headed one, all while brushing off other people's very reasonable emotional responses to the choices she made. Mary has talked about how Cody became impressed with Janelle's work ethic before they ever got together. Fans later laughed at the irony, pointing out that an office job somehow seemed extraordinary to a door-to-door salesman. But in hindsight, that work ethic storyline served a much bigger purpose. It made Janelle valuable to Cody in a way that went beyond attraction. She brought in money. She was useful. From the very beginning, making herself valuable to Cody was Janelle's top priority. And she played that role far better than anyone ever gave her credit for. The evidence suggests Janelle grasped something it took Mary and Christine years, if not decades, to understand. Cody responded to usefulness. He gravitated toward women who made his life easier instead of harder. Janelle positioned herself as an asset, not a liability, and that positioning earned her a level of protection the other wives never had. But protection from what, exactly? That's where the story takes a much darker turn. During one of the family's many conflicts, Cody made an offhand comment to his sons, referring to Janelle as the Teflon Queen. At the time, most viewers barely noticed. People were too busy cheering Janelle on, chalking it up to a bitter man lashing out as he lost control of his family. Now fans are revisiting that moment with new perspective, and what they're noticing is unsettling. The Teflon Queen label means exactly what it sounds like. Nothing sticks to Janelle. She slides through conflicts untouched, while everyone else absorbs the fallout. Mary spent years cast as the family villain. Christine was labeled bratty and immature. Robin became the manipulative outsider. But Janelle somehow stayed above the fray, the reasonable wife who just wanted peace. Except the pattern points to something far more deliberate than simple conflict avoidance. Janelle didn't avoid drama. She sparked it, then stepped back and let others take the blame. The infamous drain incident perfectly captures how this played out. When the family was living in cramped trailers with limited resources, Mary asked Janelle to stop putting food down the drain. There was no garbage disposal. The pipes were in terrible shape, and every clog meant either an expensive plumber or hours of Mary using DIY fixes to clear the mess. It was a practical, reasonable request. Janelle's response. She intentionally dumped more food down the drain out of spite, later laughing about it while Mary dealt with the consequences. When Mary confronted her, Janelle denied doing anything wrong to her face. Then she went straight to Cody, reframing the situation and complaining that Mary was being mean and aggressive. Simply because Mary was exhausted from cleaning up after her. That same cycle repeated again and again in their shared living spaces. Janelle would do something problematic, deny it when confronted, then flip the narrative so the person calling her out became the aggressor. Over time, Mary was branded the difficult wife, the one with the bad attitude, the one no one could get along with. Meanwhile, Janelle smiled for the cameras, presenting herself as easygoing and confused about why Mary seemed so hostile. The Teflon strategy worked because Janelle understood perception management. If you never raise your voice, if you stay calm and measured, people assume you must be the victim in any conflict. Mary's visible frustration made her look like the problem. Janelle's calm demeanor made her look like the answer. It was manipulation hiding in plain sight. Cody wasn't fooled, which explains the Teflon Queen comment. He'd watched this pattern unfold for decades. He knew Janelle wasn't innocent, even if he benefited from having her on his side. And unlike viewers, Cody had no reason to expose her. Janelle supported him, backed his decisions, and never embarrassed him publicly. Why would he jeopardize that arrangement? But the financial manipulation may be the most telling part of all, because it directly contradicts the image Janelle spent years carefully building as her public identity. During the Vegas years, when all 4 wives were receiving TLC paychecks and the family was making more money than ever before, a disturbing shift appeared in how finances were handled. According to details that surfaced after the tell-all, Janelle began pushing to limit Mary's access to family funds, her reasoning that her own kids didn't have enough to eat. Pause on that for a moment. This was during the height of a successful reality show. The family had steady income. Everyone was being paid. The idea that Janelle's children were going hungry while Mary stockpiled resources simply doesn't line up with the financial reality at the time. But the claim wasn't about accuracy. It was about strategy. It framed Janelle as the devoted mother fighting for her children against a selfish sister wife, who was allegedly taking more than her fair share. Mary's response to that accusation cut straight to the core. She said quietly, "I'm sorry you thought I was taking something that belonged to you." In one sentence, she captured years of resentment from a woman repeatedly painted as greedy and difficult. While one sister wife was quietly being edged out of family resources, Cody was the loudest voice insisting Mary should receive less than the others, and Janelle stood firmly beside him. She played that role endlessly, acting as his financial muscle while maintaining the public image of being the calm, reasonable wife who just wanted fairness. The irony is almost unbearable. Janelle, long praised as the financial mastermind, used her influence over money to further marginalize the wife who already held the weakest position in the family. When fans call Janelle Cody's pit bull, this is exactly what they mean. She handled the dirty work he couldn't do outright. She supplied the justifications for decisions that would have made him look cruel if he'd made them alone. In return, she enjoyed the security of being his trusted ally while the other wives scrambled for both resources and his approval. That arrangement finally began to crack during the Flagstaff era. Cody attempted to flip the script on Janelle, trying to recruit other wives to turn against her. In a twist of irony, he even went to Mary, using the very same tactic that had been successfully used against Mary for years. Janelle was livid, not because the strategy was unethical, but because it was suddenly being aimed at her. She recognized how powerful it was because she'd been using it herself for decades. She just never imagined she'd be the target. The parenting concerns that surfaced in the tell all struck even deeper than the financial manipulation, because they involved children who never asked to be caught in this dysfunction. From the very first episode of the very first season, viewers sensed something was off. Logan Brown, Janelle's oldest son, was introduced in a way that made audiences visibly uncomfortable. The phrase, "Daddy Logan," appeared in Season 1, Episode 1, and fans have never forgotten it. The parentification of Janelle's children was evident from the start, a dynamic where kids are forced into adult responsibilities because the actual parents aren't stepping up. Christine and the other original wives often filled in the maternal gaps for Janelle's kids, at least until the family scattered and that support system disappeared. Savannah's hair story became a quiet but telling symbol of this pattern. Janelle reportedly didn't realize her daughter's hair needed to be brushed for school. Christine took care of it on Monday mornings, untangling the knots that built up over weekends when Janelle was supposedly handling things herself. Viewers began asking uncomfortable questions. What was happening all those weekends? Was Janelle simply letting it go and leaving Christine to clean up the aftermath? The picture that emerged was of a mother who was physically present but largely absent from the daily hands-on care children require. The sister-wife structure conveniently supported that preference. As one commenter put it, Janelle seemed to want the title of mother without fully embracing the labor of mothering. The situation with Maddie only deepened those concerns. When Janelle's teenage daughter became involved with an adult man, many viewers were left wondering, where was the guidance? Where was the protection? The family never fully addressed it, but longtime viewers remember the unease of watching a young girl navigate a relationship that felt inappropriate for her age. And then there were the rumors about international edits. Footage allegedly aired in markets outside the US that American audiences never saw, hinting at even more that was left unexplored. According to these accounts, Janelle allegedly told Gabe and Garrison to move out, for Cody's sake. If that's true, it completely undermines the long-standing belief that Janelle chose her children over her husband. Instead, it suggests she was willing to upend her son's living situation to appease a man who had already proven he didn't prioritize them. One fan observation hit especially hard. Janelle's children appear far more protective of her than she ever was of them. The roles seem reversed. Logan raised his younger siblings. The older kids became emotional support systems for their mother during the divorce. Gabe, as one viewer put it, ended up being his mother's emotional anchor instead of the other way around. When Gabe eventually moved to Chicago to start his own life, some fans admitted they felt relieved, like he was finally escaping a dynamic where his purpose was stabilizing his mother rather than building a future for himself. The parentification that began with Daddy Logan didn't stop there. It stretched across multiple children spanning years, and as troubling as all of that is, it pales in comparison to what emerged from the family's own published book. A revelation that casts the entire history between Janelle and Mary in an entirely new, deeply disturbing light. Buried in the Brown family book is a passage many readers either overlooked or forgot. After the tell-all, a screenshot resurfaced confirming that tensions between Janelle and Mary escalated to the point where Janelle became physical with her, not verbal. Not emotional. Physical, the incident described is shocking. Janelle allegedly kneed Mary in the stomach, while Mary was pregnant. When Mary was later asked about this during an online segment, she confirmed it with a simple yes, this wasn't rumor or speculation. It was documented by the Browns themselves in their own book. Picture that scene for a moment. Two women living in close quarters, emotions running high, and one of them physically attacks the other in a way that could have endangered an unborn child. Mary reportedly told Cody about it, expecting him to intervene, to protect her, to acknowledge that a line had been crossed. His response? He dismissed it, saying it was common for women to be mean to each other. Common, a pregnant woman is kneed in the stomach by her sister wife, and it's brushed off as typical female conflict. The message Mary received couldn't have been clearer. She was not protected in this family. Her safety mattered less than keeping the peace with Janelle. Her pregnancy, her body, her well-being, all of it ranked below Cody's desire to avoid conflict with a wife who supported him financially. After that incident, Mary made the decision to never repair her relationship with Janelle. For decades, viewers interpreted this as stubbornness, as grudge-holding, as Mary refusing to fully participate in the family. But with this context, everything changes. Mary wasn't being difficult. She was protecting herself from someone who had physically attacked her while she was carrying a child. The book also suggests this wasn't an isolated event. It refers to Janelle getting physical in the plural, implying a pattern rather than a one-time occurrence for years. Fans blamed Mary for the tension, assuming her coldness stemmed from jealousy, insecurity, or an inability to adjust to polygamy. Almost no one considered the possibility that she was the victim of physical abuse from a sister wife who faced zero consequences. This revelation forces a total re-examination of every interaction between Mary and Janelle that played out on television over 2 decades. Every tense exchange, every awkward silence, every moment Mary appeared withdrawn or guarded looks different. Once you understand she was sharing a family with someone who had physically harmed her during one of the most vulnerable periods of her life. That's also why the comparison fans now draw between Janelle and Robin suddenly feels uncomfortably accurate. Janelle has turned out to be far more like Robin than many ever expected. As one viewer pointed out, the similarities are striking. Both women smile through conflict. Both avoid publicly criticizing Cody. Both become visibly giddy around him in ways Mary and Christine stopped doing long ago. And perhaps most telling of all, Cody never challenges either of them. He confronts Christine. He dismisses Mary. But with Janelle and Robin, he never rocks the boat. He openly argues with those 2 wives, showing clear contempt for them on camera. But Janelle and Robin are treated differently. Cody approaches them with caution, avoids head-on conflict, and keeps relationships that appear functional, even as the rest of the family falls apart. The reason becomes obvious once you understand what they both offer him. They validate him. They reinforce his choices. They allow him to feel like the patriarch he imagines himself to be, rather than the deeply dysfunctional husband viewers see on screen. From the start, Janelle played a role in gaslighting Mary, moving behind her back while pretending to be her ally, then entering the marriage and immediately working to diminish Mary's standing. The so-called Teflon Queen and the favored wife were using the same strategy, just at different stages in the family's evolution. Janelle locked in her position early, making herself indispensable long before Robin ever entered the picture. So when Robin arrived and began using similar tactics, Janelle recognized them instantly. Because she had written the original playbook, her criticism of Robin's give power to get power approach wasn't insight. It was projection from someone who had relied on that very strategy for decades. This parallel helps explain why Janelle never appeared as threatened by Robin as Christine did. One manipulator recognizes another, and instead of competing, both benefited from a system where Mary and Christine absorbed Cody's negativity while they remained insulated. The independence narrative Janelle built her post-divorce identity on has started to unravel under closer scrutiny. For years, she framed herself as the wife who didn't need Cody, the one with her own career, her own income, her own identity outside the marriage. After the separation, she leaned hard into that image, presenting herself as a woman reclaiming independence after years under control. But the reality tells a different story. Janelle relocated to North Carolina and now lives with Maddie, bringing Savannah with her. That arrangement isn't independence, it's dependency, mirroring the same dynamic she had with her children. While they were growing up, the mother who relied on her kids then is still being supported by them now, just in a new setting. Now she's selling life coaching centered on independence, a move many viewers find deeply ironic. Janelle charges people to teach them how to find themselves, live authentically, and walk away from situations that don't serve them. Yet this is the same woman who stayed with Cody for decades, backed his worst decisions, and never built the independent life she claimed to value. Fans call it a scam, and their logic is hard to argue with. How can someone teach independence when they've never demonstrated it themselves? The answer is simple. She can't. But the opportunity to profit exists whether or not the expertise is real. The situation with David Woolley adds another layer. At first, Janelle showed no public resentment toward Christine's new husband. Lately, though, viewers who follow her social media closely say she's been throwing subtle shade his way. That shift hints at how Janelle may be processing Christine's happiness. Christine left the family and quickly found what looks like a healthy, loving relationship with a man who openly adores her. Janelle left and ended up living with her daughter. That contrast likely stings, especially for someone who built her identity around being the more capable wife, the smarter choice, the one who supposedly had everything figured out. The question fans keep returning to is whether Janelle would go back to Cody if the circumstances were right. Many believe the only thing stopping her is her children's opposition. She knows reconciliation would seriously damage her relationships with Gabe, Garrison, and the other kids who've already distanced themselves from their father. The risk of losing their support keeps her in check, but that theory gets complicated when you remember that Maddie herself objected to Janelle even meeting with Cody for an apology conversation, raising questions about how deep that resistance really goes. Janelle went anyway, even after her daughter directly questioned why she felt the need to go. Janelle brushed off the concern and moved forward. If she were truly prioritizing her children over Cody, that conversation never would have happened. The fact that it did suggests her attachment to Cody runs deeper than her willingness to honor her children's boundaries. In the wake of the season 20 tell-all, everything audiences thought they understood about the Brown family needs to be re-examined. The hero viewers spent years defending turns out to share far more in common with the villain they condemned than anyone wanted to admit. The Jane moment during the tell-all perfectly summed up Janelle's approach to conflict. She claimed that Mary's friend had said certain things. Claims Jen immediately denied. The story didn't add up. The timeline was off. The motivations made no sense. Yet Janelle stuck to her version with total confidence. When the inconsistencies were pointed out, she didn't waver. She doubled down. Fans noticed it immediately. She was clearly lying, but she committed to the lie anyway. That pattern, confidently stating falsehoods, forcing others to disprove them and facing no consequences, is the Teflon Queen strategy in action, even when exposed, even when caught. Janelle stays composed and moves forward as if nothing happened. The coding that keeps accountability from sticking still works, even when everyone can see exactly what she's doing. The lesson that emerges from all of this goes beyond reality television and into something universal. People will tell you what they think you want to hear. They'll present themselves as flawless, as victims, as people shaped only by forces outside their control. But the truth always surfaces, it always does. You just have to watch what people do, not what they say for 20 years. Janelle's actions told a very different story than her words. She talked about independence while relying on others. She positioned herself as the financial expert while using money to disadvantage a sister wife. She claimed moral superiority while physically attacking a pregnant woman. She criticized Robin's manipulation tactics while employing the same strategies from the very beginning. The viewers who defended Janelle for years weren't foolish. They were manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to craft a public image. That feeling of being bamboozled, as the Reddit user described it, resonates because it captures the shock of realizing you trusted someone who was carefully managing how they were perceived. Mary, in particular, deserves a re-evaluation from audiences who spent decades blaming her for conflicts that now look very different in context. The woman labeled cold and difficult was, in reality, protecting herself from genuine harm. Her distance wasn't a personality flaw, it was a survival tactic. And as many fans now acknowledge, she had every reason to keep her guard up around people who hurt her and were never held accountable, if the financial genius persona was fabricated.